Finance and Appropriations Committee will come to order now, and we'll call the roll. Make sure we get.
Senator Barker.
Aye.
Senator Howe. Here. Senator Norman. Senator Newman.
Here.
Senator Saslaw.
Here.
Senator McClellan.
All right. Thank you. All right. Well, we are in session. Let's see who's here now. Senator Ruff. And yeah.
Cigar tax. This legislation is for you to try to save 80 cigar specialty stores. A few years ago, we passed legislation that put in a distinct disadvantage in the marketplace.
Right.
That tax worked for everyday cigars, but they are, with these 80 stores, really just focus on cigars and don't have anything else to make any money on. They are negatively impacted because D.C. has no tax on cigars. North Carolina caps theirs at 30 cents. What this bill would do would place a cap at 10% or 30 cents per cigar. That is the bill. There you have a FIS that says it's going to cost $12 million, but if you don't sell any cigars, you're not going to get $12 million in taxes.
Right.
And they are already losing to those across the state line. They're losing to out-of-state marketers.
Right.
And this is about the only way we can save them. And
All right.
Mike Carlin would like to speak on it.
Yeah, we'll call it for public testimony in a minute. But Senator Peterson, since you have a budget amendment that is akin to this, do you want to address that?
I think he's described it correctly. I know there was a number that was incorrect, but I think maybe 12 may be correct.
All right. Senator Norman.
Frank, just so I understand, is it the current tax 20%?
Yes, that's correct.
What is that, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Translate into an average cigar? I have no idea.
Well, these aren't average cigars, but since they're premium, it might cost $8 or $9. Well, Mike, give us an average.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, I'm Mike Carlin, representing the Cigar Association of Virginia. And
Give me the price, Mr. Chairman. Give me
What's
the
the-
price of the cigar.
Yeah.
so the cigars that are typically sold in these shops, these family-owned small cigar stores, is about $10.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
$2.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
That's right.
If you don't sell it, it's zero.
I learned that in English class. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
But if somebody can afford to pay $10 for something that will hurt their health, why can't they pay the tax to help mitigate the medical costs?
Mr. Chairman, I would say they probably could pay the tax, but if they live in Clarksville, Virginia, and they have to drive to 25 miles to South Boston, or they drive 25 miles to Oxford, North Carolina, they're going to Oxford, North Carolina.
And pay for their gas.
It's 25 miles each way, so it doesn't, yes, you can pay for the gas.
All right. You want to?
Just quickly, that is the problem, is that people are able to go across to another state, and all the other states have lower taxes than we do. We had a 10% tax in the statute, but we doubled it in 2020 in the budget. So what we're trying to do here is two-part. Senator Ruff has the bill that would fix the statute at 10% or 30 cents per cigar, whichever is lower. That matches the North Carolina bill that was just passed, so that helps us stay competitive. It'll keep us competitive with these other jurisdictions as well, including those in Northern Virginia. And then Senator Peterson has the budget amendment to account for the $12.1 million. And I think he's even introduced a companion amendment to to backfill that, if I understand that right. He's not paying any attention, but that's what I understand. So there's an amendment that will.
Mr. Chairman,
All right, Senator Newman.
can you break down the 30 cents versus the percentage, right? I mean, which one matters, and if we did one and not the other, what's the impact of those?
So if you're just buying like a $1 cigar, you're going to pay the 10% tax. It's $1.10. If you're buying a $10 cigar, you're going to pay $12. Unless you get the 30-cent cap, then you'll pay $10.30.
I guess my question, Mr. Chairman, is
Yes, Senator Newman.
let's just say we reduce 20%. If we were to reduce 20% to 10%, what's the cost of that? What's the financial cost of that?
12.1 million is the fiscal impact.
That's for both, right?
No, that's just to go from 20 to 10. Is my understanding.
Senator Barker, Senator Newman, it's currently only taxed at a percentage rate, so it's currently 20% of the sale price.
But I guess
Okay,
I
Senator
know
Newman.
I'm dense and it's a long meeting, but right now you're going to take both opportunities, right? You're going to take both. And taking both of these, if you just did one, the tax reduction to the Commonwealth is the same.
If you reduce from 20% to 10%, it's 12.1 million. If you add the 30-cent cap, it's an additional 1.7 million is what we've been able to
Okay,
estimate.
that
And the
was what I was
reason,
trying to get to.
yeah, I know, I've just figured that out.
Okay.
The reason I think there hasn't been any estimate on the part of the tax department is that the way the taxes are collected, they're collected on a percentage of the sale, not on the cigar itself. So they don't have the data to know, but we used import data to come up with that number.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak either for or against this proposal? All right, it's open to the subcommittee. Anyone want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to move to pass it by indefinitely. Recommend to pass
All
it.
right. All right. Motion is to pass by indefinitely. I'm a second to that. And then we'll, yes.
I understand the financial hit, but is there some way to find more of a medium position on this rather, an all or nothing deal? I don't know enough about it.
Right. Well, I think that the struggle is that at 20%, these shop owners over the last 2.5 years are seeing people go to other jurisdictions to buy their cigar. That's what's happening.
Chairman, but
So-
you got people like me, and I'm not allowed to smoke cigars anymore.
Right.
But I'm not going to drive to North Carolina to buy it. I mean, if so, I'm going to go to the head shop there in Williamsburg, and who knows what'll be in it, but that's
Right.
okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Right.
if occasionally you
Certainly.
do go out of state,
Yeah.
and you might pick up 10 cigars if you thought you could save big bucks.
I bought them in Cuba, and there was no tax. It's true.
I think
Pay for your trip.
I think that's the issue. Is it's really a small business issue. It's really about whether or not they can survive with this tax structure. That's the bottom line.
All right. Any further discussion or questions of the patron? All right. Call the roll.
Senator Barker,
Aye.
Senator Howe,
Aye.
Senator Saslaw,
Aye.
Senator Norman, Senator Newman,
No.
Senator McClellan votes
She
yes by
votes-
proxy.
She votes yes by proxy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's why I sell some of those.
No. All right. Senator Eben. Is he here? Yeah.
Thank you. This is Senate Bill 1350, dealing with liquid and vaporized nicotine products. Currently, we're taxing liquid nicotine through the budget. This would put that in the code for certainty. And there's a technical amendment relating to some code sections towards the beginning of it that I believe the clerk has. I received it by email today.
Mr. Chair, Senator Eben, they correct code references in the title and in the first enactment, but nothing in the substance of the bill.
And if I could, if you all want to amend that, I have another amendment, which would also strike lines 348 to 359 from this section of the tax code.
What is that?
It changes the penalty. I'm told that there's already penalty elsewhere in the code, that this is not necessary. This was a tweak to the penalty for a person who purchases liquid nicotine who's underage, and that's already forbidden elsewhere in the code.
And the age is 18 or 21?
I'm sorry, I should have said 21.
Yeah.
It says this is ambiguous. It says legal age, but it's 21 is the age.
Right.
Mr. Chairman,
All right. Senator Newman.
Adam, with these amendments, is there anything related to the taxes different than what the tax is now in the budget?
No, it's about the. I'm told it's the same taxation. But there is something on the enforcement in that people selling liquid nicotine or would have to get a certificate that I put in a budget amendment that we could finance that through the Attorney General's office through tobacco settlement. And but the taxation remains the same. But what it does, I'll draw your attention to lines 284 to 293, is that if you are a person selling liquid nicotine or vape products to someone who's underage, you could encounter a hefty fine, but on a second violation, your license would be suspended for 7 days. And for a third violation, you would actually lose your license for selling within 3 years, a third violation selling to someone underage. And we have a problem in the country and in the Commonwealth with vaping, though it's relatively new to the market, is having detrimental health effects, particularly on youth, and driving a generation that was expected by many to be the first tobacco-free generation into a mass nicotine addiction. It's easier to abuse these products, and they are abused. And e-cigarette use among young people, most of whom never were going to be smokers, has skyrocketed in recent years, jumping 78% among high schoolers just between 2017 and 18 alone.
All right. Are you aware of the fiscal impact here of $10 million in revenue loss to the Virginia Healthcare Fund?
I'm sorry. I have it here, but I had not studied it. I don't know why there's a negative fiscal impact if we're collecting the same tax.
All right. Senator Norman.
Mr. Chairman,
Right.
and then you've got the clip notes.
Yeah.
The bill reduces the Virginia Healthcare Fund revenues by $10 million. And then the next bullet, the Virginia Healthcare Fund is used for the state match on Medicaid programs. So any decrease to the fund requires a general fund appropriation.
Right.
I'm not smart enough to figure this out. Are we just kind of shifting some of that responsibility? I mean, are we going to have to do a general fund appropriation if there's a?
That's my understanding. Tyler, do you want to?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I mean, all tobacco taxes are deposited to the healthcare fund, which is used to match the state match for Medicaid. So if its revenue goes down, then you have to put in a general fund appropriation to fully fund Medicaid. So Senator Eben, to the last part of your bill where you create the fund to put the money, it basically says everything in that other section where you institute the tax is to be put in the fund. That's why it adversely impacts the healthcare fund.
Right. All right, yeah. All right, any other questions anyone has? All right, is there anyone to speak in favor of this proposal?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Dylan Bishop on behalf of the Virginia Smoke-Free Association. We represent Virginia's vapor products manufacturers, distributors, and retailers. And this is a simple case of an industry coming forward asking for regulation, because there are nefarious actors that are giving a scarlet letter to the legitimate actors that are paying the tax. To Senator Newman's earlier question, there is a slight tweak in the tax. It remains the same on liquid nicotine used in closed systems, more commonly used systems, but as has been best practice in many states, 8 states since 2021, it does bifurcate the tax on liquid nicotine and imposes a tax on liquid nicotine used in open systems at 20% of the wholesale cost. And the reason being is the liquid nicotine used in the closed or pod-based systems is tantamount to a shot of liquor. Not a lot of volume, but pretty high nicotine concentration. In the open systems, it's more akin to a can of beer, more voluminous, less nicotine. So by taxing it based on volume alone, we're actually incentivizing the use of the products that's more commonly abused by children and has a higher nicotine concentration. So that's why we suggested this amendment.
Mr. Chairman, just quickly.
All right, Senator Newman.
So if we wanted to generally codify what's in the budget, do it in the code, maybe where it needs to be done instead of in a budget, and make it revenue neutral, you can create the fund, but we don't deposit all the money into the fund, go spend it again, right? Instead, we could just say, we're going to codify this, create the fund. If we decide later on to put the money in it, it's fine, but right now, the money doesn't slide over into that fund. Is that correct?
Can you repeat that one more time? If that's what you're intending to do and change the legislation such that it doesn't take the fund, we would be totally okay with that. In fact, we're somewhat agnostic. We just wanted to give Department of Tax resources for the enforcement of these provisions.
Senator Barker, Senator Newman, you would have to pay tax. You'd have to give general funds to tax to then do the applying the licensing requirements required under the bill.
All right, is there anyone else to testify? All right. The bill's before us.
Move to pass by indefinitely.
Well, there's something to be said for consistency.
That's right, yes.
Nonpartisan.
Yes, Senator Newman.
Some of these are good ideas. I mean, I think
Right.
I think he's right. It should be. We shouldn't tax in the budget. We should back in the code, right? And I think we agree with that. But how you do it and how you get to the others. But is there a place that's looking all these? I think there generally is a place that looks at taxes, or do we not have a place that looks at taxes in the interim? Or
Senator Barker, Senator Newman, you have the Joint Tax Subcommittee, but you also had previously had a Tax Preferences Subcommittee too. So I think probably if you wanted to send something to the Joint Tax Subcommittee, you could do that.
things like this and Rob's thing made some sense.
All right, there's a motion. I don't think I heard a second yet. All right, a motion and a second to pass by indefinitely. Call the roll.
Senator Barker,
Aye.
Senator Howe,
Aye.
Senator Saslaw, Senator Norman, Senator Newman, Senator McClellan.
Votes aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
All right, yes.
could I go next so I could go back to ag?
Okay. Come forward, yeah.
They're doing it a lot better already.
Yeah, they probably are. I'm getting press releases about the votes, and I'm sitting up here. I'll move quickly. Senate Bill 950 is a bill I had last year, and I'm not under any illusions as to what's going to happen. But basically, this was allow full deductibility of PPP loans and the expenses. And just to kind of set the stage, we had the deconformity bill this morning for the federal law. And of course, one of the principles areas of deconformity is we don't follow what the feds did on PPP and the deductibility. And I'll give you an example. My own law firm, we took a PPP loan of $180,000 for the 2 months when we were effectively shut down like everybody else, which meant that was 2 months of the exactly calibrated to be the payroll and the rent. So you get the check, you then pay the expenses, you can deduct from your federal return, but on the state return we're capped at 100, so we basically lost the 80 on the state side. So we paid more in taxes on the state side. I'm just one little guy, wasn't a big deal. Obviously, I had clients, I had small businesses, people in the district were like, why did we get capped at 100? Now, the fiscal impact is 157 million. I'm not an idiot. I'm not expecting this to pass. I will say, though, that most small businesses, including probably mine, would not go back and amend a return if it's a small amount. So I think the actual impact would be less than 157. But again, I'm bringing this bill forward because I had told certain people I would, and it is what it is.
Right.
So there it is.
Senator Norman.
I just wish I was a small business guy and could afford to let 90,000 go away for 2 months. I'm envious.
Well,
of you.
it's a deduction. It's not my income.
Yeah.
Playing
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anyone who wishes to testify either in favor of or opposed to this particular?
They're all working today.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good sign. So,
My wife just texted me, said she's in favor of it. So.
okay. All right. You have a proxy, I guess.
See my co-owner.
Disappoint Senator Peterson. I'll move the PPI.
All right.
Shocked. Okay.
Yes. All right. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All right.
Senator Barker.
Aye.
Senator Howe.
Aye.
Senator Saslaw. Senator Norman. Senator Newman. Senator McClellan.
Votes aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you so much.
Certainly. Yep. Senator Reeves. Senator Reeves has a bill before us here dealing with what we did last year as it relates to veterans and in terms of the retirement pay that they get. Actually, Senator Chase has an identical bill. She's not here today, so we have a motion to PPI Senator Chase's bill. So is there, okay? We have a motion and a second. Yes.
No, I do not want to do that.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to pass by indefinitely with Senator Chase's bill. She's not here today.
Senator Barker.
Aye.
Senator Howe.
Aye.
Senator Saslaw. Senator Norman.
Aye.
Senator Newman. Is that a no or an abstain? Abstain. Senator McClellan. The
All
ayes
right.
have it.
All right, Senator Reeves, you're up now. So.
Thank you, Mr.
Certainly.
Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, last year, as you know, we made a heck of a lot of progress, finally getting some parity with Texas, Tennessee, and Florida, starting at a tax elimination starting at age 55. While great, not perfect. We were missing that group that goes in at 18 or 20 and they get out in 20 and they're in their 30s and up to the 40s, and it's a while before they get to 55. That's a pretty good significant amount of our veterans that are coming out that are going to have to work a secondary job for a second retirement. So we missed that pool of folks. And one of the things that I have spoken on and gotten a lot of feedback on from our veterans is those veterans that are in that age bracket from 38 to 55 that would like to stay here but get pulled somewhere else because of money. It's pretty simple. So what this does is it just removes the age requirement. I don't have a budget amendment because it's in the governor's introduced budget. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, that's the bill. It just takes away the age requirement.
All right. Is there anyone who wishes to testify in favor of this proposal?
Good afternoon, everyone. Board and Stewart, Assistant
Come have a seat. So, yeah.
Assistant Secretary of Veterans and Defense Affairs. We think this is a very necessary next step to keep us competitive. Right now, we are not competitive at keeping our military veterans here. We need to keep them here. We want them to come here, start their businesses, have their kids, build their houses, pay into our system. And right now, they're leaving to go to Florida, Texas, and Tennessee. So this would be the next step to keep us #1 for veterans.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? All right.
If I might make just a comment.
Okay.
Last year, we made significant progress on this, as was mentioned. For this fiscal year, it's going to cost us $145 million. For next fiscal year, $156 million. I think it's time to take a pause before we go any further, because to do what you're asking for, Senator Reeves, would be an additional $38 million next year and $33 million the following year. So that is adding up really quickly. So I would move to PBI.
Second.
All right. We have a motion to pass by indefinitely and a second. Any discussion or questions? All right. Call the roll.
Senator Barker.
Aye.
Senator Howe.
Aye.
Senator Saslaw. Senator Norman. Senator Newman. Senator McClellan.
He votes aye.
Ayes have it.
All right.
Chairman,
Thank you.
members of the committee.
Certainly. All right. Senator Pike. Pike. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Senate Bill 1142 is addressing sports betting promotional deductions. You're probably familiar with some of the conference report from last year. This sort of takes a little bit slower approach and different approach to phase it out over multiple years, as there are new entrants that are still in the market. They're still establishing sort of the market base within Virginia, and so this would prorate over multiple years. It's also modeled after legislation passed in Colorado and sort of phasing out the promotion AGR deduction over multiple years. And so you'll see that the percentage then scales down each year until July of 2026, when the cap would be set at 1.75% of AGR. And that is the bill. It just takes a little bit slower pace to phase out those deductions.
All right. Anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, Senator Norman.
Mr. Chairman, based parenthetically, what I hear as far as the revenues that are being generated from this, why are we not being more aggressive in some other areas?
So,
State revenues.
yeah.
State revenue for aggressive to what aspect,
Get more
Mr. Chairman?
state revenues out of sports betting.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd say that actually what you'd see is actually as the promotions increase, the actual betting revenue increases, and that's what taking the slower approach allows that revenue to increase over time and stabilize as they bring clients and those who want to participate into the platforms. And so there is an offset of actually more promotion, and it does increase the total pool and therefore total revenue. And so there is, I think, a net positive.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments? All right. Anybody wish to testify?
Good afternoon,
Oh.
Madam Chair, gentlemen, members of the committee. My name is B. Gonzalez. I'm with the Sports Betting Alliance. I'm sorry. Yes, sir. B. Gonzalez with the Sports Betting Alliance. I wanted to also provide this to the committee if possible. I've been very involved in sports wagering and bringing sports betting to the Commonwealth. Senator McPike carried the legislation years ago to legalize sports betting in Virginia, and we've done very well. I was surprised last year when in the budget conference our promo deductions were prohibited. And that was very surprising to us because promotional credits are used by all gaming operators to bring illegal action back to the legal platforms. And so just like today, I was ordering food, I got a $5 credit from Uber Eats. I used that promotional credit to deliver my food this morning. In fact, the lottery, 20 days after we were prohibited from the promo deductions, the lottery board approved using promotional credits in the lottery. And their reasoning in their board meeting was that they're competing with illegal operators in the same locations that sell lottery tickets. We are competing with illegal offshore platforms that are not regulated, not paying taxes. So I think we're on the right track in the Commonwealth. We started out, JLARC said that it would take 5 years to create a robust market in the Commonwealth. We didn't all start out on time. Some of us got in, were more prepared than others. And we added more licenses. We've added some renewal qualifications and criteria to fund HBCUs. We've had a lot of different fits and starts. The runway is there. We're not asking for casino parity. Casinos are allowed to deduct that and their promos and hotel rooms as they build up their base. The good thing is there's a demographic for every gaming in the Commonwealth. Sports betting has a very different demographic, and I will tell you that we're not asking for parity. We were surprised what happened in the budget. We're asking for a phased-down approach. And we're willing to continue to work with you to figure out what the best approach is. The fiscal impact that we saw didn't make a lot of sense to us because we know we're going to continue to generate more and more revenue. I think the problem, Senator Norman, you and I spoke about this last year on the marketing. A lot of people assume that because the handles are $500 million, that we're making $500 million. $500 million was bet on sports, $480 million was won. We don't deduct our radio ads, our TV ads, all of that. The only thing we deducted in the original bill was those promotional credits. So if I'm a retailer and I go in and I buy a Coke and I have a 25-cent coupon, that retailer only pays 75% of the tax. We're just saying we're paying tax on funny money. And so promotional credits work to bring illegal to the legal market, and we just hope that you support this bill. We have one, DraftKings is here to also testify. We found out about this subcommittee meeting. We thought we were in Senate full finance tomorrow, so I apologize that our folks are not all here to talk, but if John Mormon can come up and also share his thoughts. Thank you so much.
All right.
How's it going?
Thank you.
Chairman, members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is John Mormon, Government Affairs Counsel for DraftKings, here to testify on behalf of the Sports Betting Alliance, made up of DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, and Fanatics. We're in strong support of this bill. As some of you know, last year there was budget language added in late June that went into effect shortly thereafter in July 1 that prohibited Virginia sports betting operators from deducting their promotional play offerings after their first respective year. Excuse me, in the Commonwealth. This tax policy was never once heard in any committee, nor debated on either chamber's floor, but instead was all done behind closed doors without any public stakeholder input. While sometimes bills fail in committee and make it into the budget late in the process, it seems rare or perhaps even unprecedented for a bill which has never been heard in committee to make it into a passed budget. Procedural matters aside, as promotional deductions for sports betting operators were eliminated through the budget, a concurrent gaming cleanup bill gave casinos within the Commonwealth the ability to exclude their promotional offerings from their gross receipts, allowing them to deduct such expenses prior to reporting their monthly revenue figures to the Virginia Lottery. Most of you on this subcommittee voted in favor of that legislation. As a matter of policy, that dynamic was both perplexing and also unfair from a tax policy perspective.
Senator Norman.
I'm probably nowhere near the lawyer that you are, but I pretend to be one in my regular job. And one of the things that I've tried to do over the years is provide some guidance and mentoring to younger attorneys. And I just, without being judgmental, would say coming in and attacking the process, which is directly attacking the personnel behind it, is not getting you a lot of advantage on this bill. And so I say that from a constructive and mentoring perspective as a total criticism.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I agree with Senator Norman. However, over the past year, I've thought back about what happened in budget conference last year, and I do think we erred in our process. Maybe not in the decision we made, but definitely in the process. And for that reason, I am going to support this bill.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? All right. Are there any questions or comments from the subcommittee? All right. Anyone wish to make a motion?
I move the report.
Second.
All right.
In spite of.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion and a second to report. Is there any further discussion or questions? All right, I'll call the roll.
Senator Barker,
No.
Senator Howe,
Aye.
Senator Saslaw, Senator Normant, Senator Newman,
I'll vote aye because of what the chair said.
Senator McClellan. I have 3-3. Failed to report.
All right. Fails to report, to recommend reporting. Okay. And so it's okay. All right, so that was 3-3, but it will go up to the full committee, so. All right. All right, Senator Norman, you want to present your bill here? Senate Bill 1451 on income. And, huh?
Do you want to take Sue?
Okay, yeah. All right, Senator Suderline, why don't you come up here? You have some similar bills, so similar proposals.
Would you like me to do both bills or just one?
Well, start with the one that's,
Well, I'm fine with rolling.
right.
Chairs, thank you. I'm fine with rolling my Senate Bill 1423 into Senator Norman's bill.
All right. All right. That would be Senate Bill 851, right?
I don't think.
1423.
Yes, did I say different number?
You said 1423, but Senator Norman's relates to.
It's closer to 851.
Yeah, right.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I would. Senator Newman's bill of appropriate number.
Okay.
And if Senator Norman has standard deduction, I'm then happy to move or request that you move Senate Bill 851 into that one too.
Right.
It's slightly different. But you have a higher standard deduction.
Okay.
I understand that.
Yes.
I briefly appreciate you rolling them in. I do think the standard deduction should be higher than what Senator Norman's going to articulate, but I'm sure that working Virginians would be better off with that than the status quo, and I appreciate Senator Norman doing that, and I'm happy to cheer that effort along, and I hope that you all are supportive of it. And best of luck, Senator Norman.
All right.
You were doing pretty well there for a minute.
All right. Does anybody want to make a motion to roll Senator Suderline's bills into Senator Norman's? And yeah.
Second.
All right. Yes. 1355. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. All right. Senator Obenchain.
Sales and use of
Yes.
Good evening.
Good. Well,
I have Senate Bill 1240, the retail sales and use tax exemption for indoor agricultural equipment. Senator Peake has a similar bill that I think he he asked me to ask you to roll that into this bill, if that's the pleasure of the committee.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion to roll Senate Bill 985 into Senate Bill 1240?
Can I ask one question? one quick question. Does his substitute do what both bills do, or do we need to incorporate?
He is happy with the bill that I have and the substitute to it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this bill deals
But
with.
let's vote. We need to vote on this one. So, yeah.
Yes. Sorry. So you would vote to roll Senate Bill 985 into Senator Obenshain's 1240.
Right.
However, that's a new, Senator Obenshain's going to offer a new substitute, so Senator Peake's topic or specifications are different, but we're not rolling those into the new substitute.
That's correct.
Thank you. All right.
All right. Anyone want to make that motion?
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
In favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
All right.
Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
All right. Senate Bill 1240. Do you have you said you had a substitute?
I believe there is a substitute.
Mr. Chair, the substitute is the same, identical to what they did on the House side. It takes the existing exemptions from the introduced bill, breaks them out into 3 subdivisions, gets more specific in the internal, external, and structural components. And I think that effectively describes it.
My understanding, and there are some subject matter experts here, my understanding is that the purpose of the substitute is that there is a large new economic development opportunity that is coming that this will encompass. And it's particular, it is drawn to the nature of the construction of that particular facility. So we are seeing a significant increase in controlled environment agricultural facilities in Virginia. In my part of Virginia, we have Shenandoah Growers, which is the largest organic vegetable farm in the country. SoFi Organics, you may have seen that in the grocery stores in your areas around the country. It is an indoor, largely indoor farming operation, and we've seen a number of entrepreneurial ventures and large national organizations come into Virginia. And frankly, what this bill does is it extends the agricultural sales and use tax exemption that is available for a lot of outdoor agricultural endeavors to use indoors. And the exemptions don't apply in instances, for example, where these are structures that are attached to the facility itself. This does not create an exemption for construction of the buildings. It may make an exemption for windows in the building to the extent that they're utilized for sunlight for the actual products, but not for an office complex, for example. This is very important to the continued growth and vitality of this industry. And Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, that's the bill.
All right. Any comments or questions? All right. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this proposal?
I would point out that it's very similar to the sales tax deduction that's already available for data centers, for the equipment that is going in there. I mean, these are economic development engines, and this is no different. It's just in rural parts of Virginia.
Yes. Yes, come forward.
Hi there. Good afternoon. Parker Slayball, Deputy Secretary of Agriculture. The senator took the words right out of my mouth where I was going. This is very similar to the data centers tax exemption, where they are exempt for specialty items that are used with those data centers, but not necessarily the building materials. Virginia is rapidly growing to be one of the world's largest hubs for controlled environment agriculture or the indoor growing of food. These are high-tech, high-paying jobs. The nice thing is these operations are popping up in all areas of the Commonwealth. You're not seeing them more tailored towards rural or urban areas. They are becoming popular in all areas of the Commonwealth. Additionally, there's no size requirement in this bill, So this would apply to larger farmers, larger operators, the same as it would kind of the smaller, medium operations. So thank you. Hope you'll support the bill.
All right.
If I could
What is it?
ask a question. You said these are popping up all over the Commonwealth. If that's the case, why do we need to give them an incentive?
So we always have room for more, Madam Chair. I think right now we have a lot of them that are creating jobs in parts of the Commonwealth that have strategically not had these industries. There's a number of companies in the pipeline who are looking at Virginia, considering Virginia. This is one more, I think, tool in our tool belt that will help to recruit those companies to come, because we are competing with North Carolina and Tennessee.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Senator Howell.
I assume the others were too. I mean, and they came without the incentive.
And we've also lost a number.
And some of these, Madam Uber Chair, some of these are homegrown companies like Shenandoah Growers, and this basically treats them the same way as truck farms, outdoor farms, and it's going to enable them to continue to grow. Some of them are operating on a shoestring. I've read about a microgreens company here in Richmond that is truly, really an exciting kind of micro enterprise that is growing and just trying to get out of the starting gates and market to local restaurants and local specialty grocery stores. That company could very well be on the edge of, survival, and this is going to be an important economic, leveling of the playing field for indoor farms versus, outdoor farms.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Newman.
Let me ask the question a bit in reverse, right? I don't know, popping up all over the place. I don't see in the indeterminate amount. There must not be that many out there, but it does appear that this is greenfield. In other words, this is a emerging market, and either we'll set our tax rates in a place that are conducive, or we will miss the opportunities to do that. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, if we don't make it conducive for them to come, we get zero, right? From all the buildings, for the employment, for everything else. So the question might be kind of the opposite of maybe the chairs, which is how much money can come in, how much can we make, not in a negative way, that's just, it's indeterminate. It's almost as if, as economic development comes in, what's the dynamic budgeting of this?
Let me also add that, we are really struggling with soil and water conservation, with best management practices, with the cost of preventing runoff into the Chesapeake Bay and into our waterways. And what these facilities also do, the advantage that these provide, is that they are producing significantly more agricultural product in a smaller agricultural footprint. And, I would predict that if we're going to look at any kind of dynamic modeling, that, as we continue to experience suburban growth, farmland is going to be much more difficult to come by. It's already very expensive in my part of the state. Development is taking it over. And this is going to be an important tool in trying to limit our expenditures on soil and water conservation and best management practices in the long run. It is the future of agriculture in a lot of ways.
All right. Anyone else wish to testify?
Mr. Chairman, Brad
Have a seat, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Brad Copenhaver, representing the Virginia Agribusiness Council. I'd like to thank Senator Obenshain for bringing this, thank the administration for spearheading this effort as well, and Senator Peake, too. I think I can just echo everything that's already been said. This is the next frontier of agriculture. Virginia may have been one of the first states out of the gate, but other states around us are waking up to this opportunity, and we have to stay competitive in this space. I would also point out One of our members at the Agribusiness Council, Greensboro Growers in Goochland County, they're one of those homegrown. They're considering whether or not they would like to expand that operation, and something like this is going to be very important to them as well. So thank you, Senator Obenchain, and thank you.
All right. Anyone else wish to speak?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Edward Mullen with Reed Smith. We represent a firm called Plenty that is putting a pretty significant indoor vertical farm into Chesterfield County. Appreciate the consideration of parity with other kinds of agriculture for this new and emerging technology, which is indeed sustainable and takes up a smaller footprint. And this will certainly help us as we plan additional facilities going forward. So appreciate the consideration of the committee.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this issue? All right, are there comments or questions from the subcommittee?
Mr. Chairman, I just would make a comment, and some of us sitting here are participants on MEI.
Right.
And normally that's the frontline screening part of the process on whether or not we're going to provide, in my terms, incentivization projects. And I think when we move forward on those type of projects, we have a responsibility to follow up.
All right.
This may actually bring agriculture back to Tyson's Corner.
On rooftops.
On top of the new
We
casino.
grow lawns.
Yes,
That's the problem.
Yes, yeah. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going
Yes,
to
Senator Newman.
report the bill, and the reason is I just think we have no idea the revenue that could come to the Commonwealth if this thing takes off here, and the revenue lost if we kind of miss the boat. So that.
All right. So you are recommending reporting. Okay. Is there a second?
A second.
All right. We have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just wanted to comment that bringing up the MEI has put me in a kind of a difficult spot as chair of the MEI. I had not considered that in my original thoughts on how to deal with this bill. So it may surprise some of you.
All right.
Would you like me to call the roll?
Yes.
I'm not really used to clerking, so I apologize. All right, Senator Barker.
Aye.
Senator Howe.
Aye.
Senator Saslaw. Senator Norman. Senator Newman. Senator McClellan. Unanimous.
All right. Thank you. All right. Senator Norman.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have Senate Bill 1451, and I am really excited to come at this point because we are picking up some positive momentum here. That is always encouraging to me because I am effusive in my optimism frequently. On Senate Bill 1451, staff, upon reviewing it, found that a technical amendment needed to be made just regarding the dates that got confused, and you all may have that. If not, I have a copy of it, which I'm happy to share with you.
Okay.
They have them?
It's in the FIS, Mr. Chair.
So it doesn't do anything to change the substantive provisions of it. It just, we got some dates that were juxtaposed on
All right.
that.
We want to adopt those cleaning up the, what is that? Anyone want to make a motion to that effect? All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah. All right. All in favor of the amendments, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. All right.
Mr. Chairman, how I would like to proceed with the indulgence and permission of you, sir, is I'm going to make a very brief comment, and then I'm going to ask the Secretary of Finance to speak to you. But the reason I want to make a introductory comment is this, that everyone on this subcommittee knows me pretty well, and I can be full of foolishness, but generally I'm pretty responsible, and over the years I've tried to not be ludicrous, but be responsible when it comes to budgetary issues. I'm mindful this is an administration bill, and I just call the shots the way I see them.
Right.
I do want you to know, and I did share with Senator Howell, this may be an administration bill, but it is something I do believe in and I am invested in. Right. So I am just not the courier at the request of someone who's maybe a floor up from me, and I just want to make that very clear. So with that, if I could ask Mr. Secretary, who wants to make some brief remarks, and then through oversights he has, I'm sure I'll pick up what he's missed.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Members of the committee.
Yes.
I made it. Thank you for having me. So I've not had a chance to present some of our thoughts to all of you, and so I thought I'd take just a few minutes, will not be long, to make sure that you all understand the rationale for why we've proposed what we've proposed. So I think that the dialogue can quickly divert from that. But we do believe that it's a critical time for the Commonwealth to take a strategic action on taxes, that there are some trends going on in the Commonwealth over the last 9 years that we believe should have everybody a bit concerned. As great a state as we have and all the attributes that we're so proud of, we have a trend in what we call domestic outmigration. So over the last 9 years, when this turned negative, we've lost 132,000 Virginians, net of people coming in versus the people who have left. At that same...
Yes, Senator Sasson.
I called the Census Department to verify the numbers that you get if you Google it. And they said those numbers are deadly accurate.
Mm-hmm.
On April 1st, 2010, we had 8,001,000 people. 10 years later, on that exact same date, according to them, we had 631,000 more, not 129,000 people lost. In addition to that, I checked with local governments. They don't sense anything. High-rise condos and apartments are popping out of the ground at record rates in Northern Virginia. I don't know where you get your information from, but I can tell you it's inaccurate.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I speak?
There's a difference of perspective here, and
right.
argumentation is probably not going to change anyone's perspective on it.
Okay.
It's just me trying to smoke the peace pipe.
Okay.
Yep. Senator, I appreciate that, and this is all the data. It is U.S. Census data. I'd be happy to send it to you because we picked different dates. We told you we picked this at the beginning of when things turned negative, which is 2013. That's what the data is throughout our entire presentation. So that's consistent, and I'd be happy to look at the data that you have. So, and I think there's confusion again about domestic net migration versus overall net migration, including international, and then population growth. And we have said there has been population growth over the same time period we're talking about. We have an underlying problem where we have this trend where Virginians and other people in the other 49 states have the choice when they decide to move of where they go. And what's happened to Virginia is over that time frame, we are net down 132,000 citizens. Weldon Cooper did the same analysis over the same time frame. It was presented at the Senate Finance Offsite based upon dependents, and their conclusion, and I have it right here, is that as a result of this, our population is approximately 180,000 lower than it would have otherwise been if that trend had not been negative. That's just to get it flat. So we believe that whether it's with respect to schools, which you all were talking about at that time at the offsite,
right.
And I saw there was a lot of concern, as there should be. We're talking about the other implications on the Commonwealth of this trend continuing unless we do something. And we believe that tax reform, tax reductions are a critical element to that.
Okay.
So over the last 2 years on this trend, the competitive states that we've talked about have been 1 through 6 in terms of population growth. Virginia has been 41st in the country. I believe this is not being critical of Virginia. This is a fact that I think everybody should have some concern about and be focused on. With respect to retention of higher ed students, I think you've probably heard this, that also from Weldon Cooper, looking at all of the public and private universities in the Commonwealth, Virginia is 39th in terms of retention of those students to keep jobs in Virginia at a 34%. All the states to our south are well above us. Tennessee at 50%, North Carolina at 54%, Georgia at 57%. We have one of the best university systems in the country. This should be a concern. We do not have, the number one reason for their choice is jobs, and we do not have the jobs for them. Adjusted gross income, looking at the same population, out of that 132, 87,000 of those were taxpayers. The adjusted gross income that went with them was $8.9 billion. It's an average adjusted gross income of $110,000 per taxpayer. That's the money that's left. In that same time frame, South Carolina picked up $17 billion, North Carolina picked up $18 billion, a $27 billion gap in revenue impact. So unfortunately, we are living in the middle of the most competitive region in the country. Those states to our south are all moving very aggressively. They're lowering taxes on the individual income side of things. They started taking action in 2013. 3 of those states are at 0. The other 3 are on the march down. So we've kept ours since back to the 80s, has been flat with where it is today. That's the last time that this topic was revisited. We think it's time to revisit that. People do care about what they pay. Workers and companies make decisions based upon the cost of living for their employees. So that's why we believe this is so important. We believe we see what's being done and with the budget, the significant investments that are being made and all the other things last year and what's proposed for this year. So we do think that we are addressing the needs of the citizens of Virginia. So thank you for giving me a chance to say that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everyone knows I'm not a numbers guy, and I'm not going to get into controversial numbers on it, but here's where I come on it. Last year, we issued a $250 rebate check to the citizens of the Commonwealth, which I thought was appropriate considering the financial atmosphere. But as I had mentioned to some of you, that was a one-time opportunity, and I am more interested in something that is more systemic, a system type of situation that has a persistency to it, and that's why I have agreed to get involved in Senate Bill 1451. The premise is doubling the standard deduction from what we did in 2022, and I know that that was the subject of some discussions that went on it. When you think about that provision of it, I had reflected on it and we had a discussion maybe a week or so ago about lower income individuals on the tax rates and those that had a low income tax credit. And there'd been some discussions and actions about, well, maybe we should return that unused low-income tax credit to the individuals. If you think about doubling the standard deduction, where that is really going to help individuals are lower-income people. It is actually going to create a larger universe of people who are going to be eligible for a low-income tax credit. So if you're looking at proportionality of it, not in a disingenuous term, but it is going to be disproportionate to lower income people who will benefit from that. Those like Chap Peterson, who makes so much money, throw $90,000 away, it's not going to help them, that much. So that's one of the concerns that I have, is systemic. And then the other portion of it is reducing the 5.75% personal income tax to 5.5. Now, in the infinite wisdom of those who are chair of budget, there is budget language in there that retains the metrics in order for that to happen. It is not in the bill, and the reason it's not in the bill is because it's incorporated in the budget language that we did, so they'll still have to hit those revenue numbers in order. And this bill eliminated that last enactment clause, which reflects to it. But as I look at other states, it's interesting. North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia have all reduced their income taxes, but I got a graph that was broader than that, and it's from the Tax Foundation that looked at all of the states across the United States. And over the last 12 or 13 years, that it actually, the average nationwide has gone down 0.25% nationwide on it. So it is a direction that we're moving in. We had something else in Senate Finance that dealt with migration. I'm not getting into the numbers deal, but it's interesting. The greater influx of new citizens and new businesses was coming into Florida, Texas, Tennessee, and Arizona. Well, Florida, Texas, and Tennessee don't have an income tax. Arizona actually is moving theirs down to 2.5%, but that's where people are going, and it's, that is certainly a driver. I would say to you that as I look at the financial perspective, and I'm not a numbers guy, but it did cause me to at least pause and think. We're coming out of the pandemic situation. We've got the talking heads who are putting the fear of everyone, including the economists, in that we are going to have a recession, but at least there is a discussion of pre-recessions. And I say that sitting from a corporate bank board, as I have watched interest rates gone from 1.5%. The last one we were at 7% at a corporate board meeting, which is having a significant fiscal impact on people on it. But in spite of those atmospheric conditions, I'm very proud of what Virginia did, because we had over $3.4 billion in my term, unanticipated revenues. Some people.
Did you say surplus?
No, I did not say that word. And I think it's pretty remarkable as we look at the totality of the atmospheric circumstances nationwide and in Virginia. And by fiscal year 2024, based upon the sustainable projections that we've been able to validate, we're going to have about $4.3 billion in cash reserves on it. So I'm really excited because I think Virginia is moving in the right direction. I think we have been fiscally responsible, but I think we can continue to give some benefit to our lower income individuals in lieu of maybe some other ways that we would spend money. And that, in fact, there can be a more systemic change in that taxpayers will get a break going from 5.75 down to 5.5. I get the implications of it, but I think it's a balanced approach. And when I say balanced, sometimes I'm always looking for an opportunity to work a compromise or a deal.
Right.
And I mean that sincerely. And I think one of the maladies that we have in the General Assembly right now, and maybe particularly in an election year, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or whatever you may be, is we want what we want. And I understand that intuitively, but I really think, particularly in the Senate, that we have enjoyed a collegiality for quite some period of time. It has deteriorated some, but I won't get into that soliloquy right now. But I do think that this bill may be a vehicle for an opportunity from working some bipartisan compromise that we can get Republican support and Democratic support, that if we can agree on a couple of vehicles, I do think that this is an opportunistic piece of legislation. And I say to you in good faith, if we can have that discussion, whether we have it publicly or privately, I am willing to enter into it in a totally good faith situation to see if there is some compromise so that two people can, or groups can walk away as winners.
Right.
That's my pitch.
All right, thank you. Senator Sasslaw, you want to?
Things. Number one, we're going to need to spend, instead of giving them tax cuts, $600 million to $1 billion to try to do something about the ludicrous tuition that people are paying in Virginia. The state used to pay 2/3 of the cost of educating that student, and the parents 1/3. It's now reversed. To put that back where it was, you're looking at $700 million. With respect to income tax cuts, I heard the governor mention that both Texas and other states have no income tax, okay? And that's true. I picked two states, one more or less urban, the other rural, and looked at, real estate taxes. In Fairfax County, if your house is assessed at $1 million, you pay $11,100 and some a year in real estate taxes. If your house is assessed at $11,100 in Dallas, $1 million, in Dallas, same in Fairfax, you don't pay $11,100. You pay $21,900. I'd rather pay the income tax. In rural state, like New Hampshire, that what you pay $11,000 for in Fairfax on a house that's assessed at $1 million, you pay $18,800. I'd rather pay the income tax. We got a lot to do. We had one of the best tuition systems in America until the car tax came. And we keep giving this away. And you mentioned South Carolina, you mentioned North Carolina. So I went online last week. In 2021, median income in North Carolina, family income, was between 61 and 62,000, the same as South Carolina. Guess what it was in Virginia? $80,000. Okay, I do not want to be like North Carolina. I do not want to be like South Carolina. We're a hell of a lot better off.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Norman.
Probably not many areas that I perhaps have an advantage in understanding issues more than Senator Sasslaw. I know a lot about higher education, and I am working on some things to try to assist on that. And you all have heard me ad nauseum that we need to impose greater discipline on higher ed. That's not to the exclusion of helping them,
right.
But there's some things that we can do, but I'm working on that.
All right.
Respond?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. So, again, I respect you tremendously, Senator Sasslaw, and you have infinite knowledge. I will say that this is a bit of the story of the frog in the pot of water, and those states are gaining ground quickly. So I think we need to be aware of that. We are, without question, Virginia is way ahead of those states in the public services that are provided, and that's a great asset. That's one of the reasons why Virginia has so much going for it. We're losing the competition with these states day in and day out, and the gap is closing. That's what we're talking about here, and that we believe this is a critical element of being competitive, compete to win, so we can stay ahead of those states. I believe that with what Virginia has as its natural gifts, as we address this, we should be growing faster than the states to our south. There's no reason why we're not.
Senator Howell.
I'm not sure what the numbers are on our population. I agree with Senator Sasslaw that it's definitely growing. But what I do think is that the reason people who are moving south are doing that is not because of the tax code. I think it's because of the weather. They're retiring and they want to be in a warmer place. And there are more affordable housing for retirees down there than there are here. There are a lot of reasons other than the tax rate why people would be heading south. And I really believe that the strength, and I think it's been more eloquently stated by Senator Sasslaw, but the the advantage we have is the services we provide and the education we provide. And especially in the education, that's a different age group than what's moving. And I think we really have to adequately fund those. We have demonstrated in reports we've been getting that we're not. And I view this as an opportunity to catch up and do what we've always felt we should have done, but weren't able to. And now's the chance.
All right, let me weigh in just a little bit. And, you want to go? Go ahead.
Oh, you.
Go ahead.
I was almost wanted to go last, but Mr. Chairman, a couple things.
Yeah.
If you look in this room right here, I can tell you, people at this table, no one's going to get this deduction. I don't think many people in this room are going to get this deduction. This is a working man's deduction. What's interesting about this one, Mr. Chairman, is that when we had the Trump tax cut and we got a little money, George and
Yes.
Norman and I sat in a room and we said, what can we do for working Virginians, right? We came up with a standard deduction. Right. And it was the right thing to do because it worked for the working poor and for the working man, right? And that's what this is about. You think about this working man, because 80-some, almost 90% of what's in this budget, in this package, are for working people and working poor people. Not only that, Mr. Chairman, the reason why, and there's a right number. I don't know if the $400 million is the right number. Maybe there's a different number. I don't know. But if you think about our surplus of this time of $3 billion, would we think about spending about 12% of it, 13% of it?
It's 3.6. $1 billion on taxes, 2.6 on other items.
Okay, so about 11% on the working poor. That's the question. That really is the question, because nobody in here is going to get it. Nobody's, if you itemize, you don't get it. That's it. You're done. You're cooked, right? You don't get any of this. This is only for people that fill out that easy form or they do other things. So, I think 11% going to the working poor is a good number. Maybe it's a 9%. Maybe the time when we leave here it's 13 or it's 8. I don't know, Ms. Norman, but that's the reason why I kind of like this. It's the one that in the past we've had bipartisan support on, and that is on the standard deduction. So, thank you.
All right, let me just weigh in on this discussion here. And actually, the example you gave of what we did in 2018 was one of the things I was planning on talking about here. So, and Senator Newman and I worked to come up with a proposal that would move us forward on the standard deduction, nowhere near as aggressive as the federal level, but certainly moving us in Virginia into a different position. Last year, when Senator Howell and Delegate Knight and I the three of us ended up putting the budget together. And what we did was we took the standard deduction from $4,500 to $8,000. And so that was the one major thing that we made adjustments to that went over and above what we had done in the Senate with the budget. So we did that very intentionally. And then we had a report that came out from JLARC during the year that basically said that fairness and equity and those types of things that they were measuring was improved significantly by both the standard deduction and the earned income tax credit. And so I think we're helping go to the point that you're making and that you've been making. So I think, these are things that, we want to continue over time. And I think we also need to take some look at what we can do with some of the investments in education and other types of things that we've been talking about there that I think are critical. Senator Howell and I had a lengthy meeting with the governor a week or so ago, and we talked about a lot of those types of things, and we're going to try to address make some of the investments that we need to make, I think, to be able to continue to provide opportunities in workforce, in higher education, and K-12 education, and some of the basic services that are needed by people. And I think with that then, you know, we can work to put us in a better posture. And actually, you know, one of the things that can help us a little bit as it relates to the migration patterns. Part of what had helped Virginia during basically the period up to 2013 was that we had significant international migration into Virginia. And some of those people came here and were very poor when they first came here. But data that I've looked at shows that by and large, once they get here, they become a vital part of our economy. And actually, by the time people who have immigrated into Northern Virginia, in reality, they may start out with a lower income and a higher poverty rate. By the time they've been here 10 to 20 years, they're making more than people who were born in Virginia. And that type of thing is part of what we need to get. You know, we've had in Northern Virginia, we've had, you know, a lot of the tech industry that has been hobbled a little bit by the fact that they have plans and things that they think could make, where they could make a lot of profit there. And, you know, with high-paying salaries to people who have that type of technology situations there. And so what, you know, but they've said that they haven't, particularly during, you know, the latter part of the last decade, the number of people coming in from countries where they already had acquired those skills was dropping. And that, so they were having great difficulty. What you talked about in terms of, the two of you talked about in terms of the higher education system we have a great higher education system at the public level here. But what we need to do is to make sure that we retain those people after they're out of college. And you know, there's a lot of evidence, and both anecdotal and calculated, that shows that we're not always hanging on to the people we should be attracting. So I think we can sort of over time, you know, deal with balancing, you know, these types of things where we're making the types of investments that are needed to prepare people for being productive in the workforce, where we can bring additional businesses and companies and operations to Virginia. And certainly, you know, we're getting pretty good at with MEI and the other types of things of, you know, doing some of those things, the EDP programs, et cetera. So I think we have a lot to do there too. And we can continue, I think, over time on the path of what we've been talking about, and, you know, what the JLARC congratulated us on to a certain extent there. So I think we do have some opportunity to move things forward, and we're not always going to go in one straight direction, but I think we really can get there, and I'm optimistic about working on that over time. So, all right, anything further you want to talk about, Senator Norman? So,
I've been loquacious enough for you.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion on this issue? So
We recommend, now we're on Senate Bill 1451.
51, right.
Recommend it to the full committee that it be passed by indefinitely.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Motion and a second on passing it by indefinitely. Any further discussion or questions? All right. Call the roll. So,
Senator Barker.
aye.
Senator Howe.
Aye.
Senator Saslaw. Senator Norman. Senator Newman.
No.
Senator McClellan.
All right. That motion passes. So thank you. Certainly.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yes. All right. Oh, Senator Hashmi, yes. Hiding in the corner, so.
He had the income tax or the deduction?
I've got the corporate tax.
He has a corporate tax, Newman's bill.
He had standard deduction and income tax.
Right. All right. Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. We've had some conversations about this bill, SB 922, and it is an attempt to help Virginia address the crisis in our affordable housing. We have many, many mobile home parks across the Commonwealth, and unfortunately, many of them are closing or being sold to outside investors in order to convert that land into higher market rate apartment complexes. We're seeing the wholesale displacement of families who have lived in these parks for decades. One thing that I firmly feel is that, we have a misnomer. We call them mobile home parks, but really these are not mobile people. These are not families that are able to transition, nor do they transition to different housing. I have a mobile home community very close to my own neighborhood, and the community members there have lived for 30, 40 years. They've raised their children there. Their children have been in schools with my children, and it is a tragedy when we see these mobile home parks disrupted and being sold for a significant profit, and then the replacement housing that comes in is far out of the reach of the families who have traditionally lived there. So this legislation provides an incentive for mobile home park owners who are looking to sell their parks to incentivize them to sell them to non-profit housing providers, and then use any gain from such sale to deduct that gain from their taxable income. I think the incentivization is necessary so that we can continue to give options to the families that live there, and that we provide options especially for nonprofit organizations that are willing to support and help these communities. So we've had 2 mobile home parks in Virginia that were recently sold to nonprofit organizations just recently. East End Mobile Home Park in Manassas was purchased by Catholics for housing, and Bermuda Estates in Chesterfield, which is going to be, which is part of the district that I will be representing, is purchased by Project Homes. And in both of these cases, the non-profits who purchased these mobile home parks made significant improvements. They improved the quality of life for the residents, but they did not increase the rental price significantly in price these communities out of their communities. But these are just 2 examples. There are ways that we can continue to address and help our affordable home crisis that we have, and this is one avenue to provide some relief to families who are struggling.
All right. Any comments or questions? Yes. Yeah.
We
All
have
right.
Christine.
Come forward, yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Christy Marrow with the Virginia Poverty Law Center, and we thank Senator Hashmi for bringing this legislation. So I also work with a group called the Manufactured Home Community Coalition of Virginia, and that's a group of nonprofit housing providers, homeless services providers, other advocates, and residents of mobile home parks. And what we are seeing, particularly in Northern Virginia, is that while it's very helpful that you all passed legislation to require parks to give notice to residents and to DHCD when they get an unsolicited offer and wait 60 days before finalizing that sale, what we're finding is that by the time they've received this unsolicited offer, they have pretty much made up their mind that they're going to take it. In one instance recently in Northern Virginia, in fact, the nonprofit that the mobile home park residents notified and worked with offered more than the unsolicited offer that was received, and yet that was still rejected. And so there needs to be, and that park, they are very worried about raising rent rents and other things that are going to happen because of the corporate owner that has now purchased the park, despite that other higher offer from the nonprofit. And so what really needs to happen, and the significance and the reason we so strongly support Senator Hashmi's legislation, is that there needs to be something to level the playing field. So while this is designed to incentivize park owners to sell to nonprofits, what that will do is actually put them on equal par, because it will enable and give these nonprofits reason to think they're going to be able to offer funding to a park that perhaps is failing and needs some work, even if it's not yet up for sale, and convince the owner to sell it in order to get this tax benefit. So we ask that you support this and report this.
All right. Yes, Senator Newman.
A technical question. I personally kind of like the idea, right? Because you're saying you can own and it's good for both. But what I understand the cap of $9 million, but how do you know that when you're negotiating a sale, right? Because let's say there was $13-15 million worth of deals that year.
Mm-hmm.
You're capped at $9 million. I don't get in the bill whether it's first come, first serve, or if it's a
Senator Barker, Senator Newman, there is no cap in the bill on the income. I think you're looking at the indeterminate negative, which tax estimated it to be up to $9 million if all of the sales in fiscal year 2022 qualified. So,
yes, Senator Newman.
So it's really not up to $9 million. I mean, if everyone sold their mobile home park tomorrow, it could be $800 million, right? I mean,
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, Senator Newman, in fact, the fiscal impact statement itself noted that the $9 million was probably an overestimate, because it assumed that the amount of every sale would be the total amount of the gain. In other words, it assumed that none of these park owners had any sort of loan or mortgage on the property, but that they would take all of the sales proceeds and that would be their gain. In fact, it's very likely that that would not be the case every year for every park. And I believe that the $9 million also assumes, just based on information that I know I shared with the finance folks, assumes that 10% of the sales for the year would be to nonprofits. Given that we only have 2 parks that are currently owned by nonprofits, I think, again, that overestimates the amount. So I would just submit that it would be much lower than the $9 million, probably closer to $2 million.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this bill? I've talked with the patron here, and I think one of my understanding is that in the body down the hall, that they have already not moved this forward in their body, and so we had talked about some different options, and I think what might be best and most helpful would be not to go into a situation where we're going to be working on a compromise that's unlikely to happen, I think, in this year, but to put some money in the budget that we come forward with in a week and a half, and have that be for grants that could go to basically trying to deal with the situations that are causing some of the sales to occur as they're having challenges in operation of their parks and things. So I think that's a way in which we're sort of would be most productive to try to do that right now. So, all right. Is there anyone who wants to make a motion to go down that path, or what other?
I'd like to make the motion that we do some things in the budget.
Right.
This bill,
Yes.
Move it forward. Buy for the day or what?
Well, we could be by for the day, or pass by indefinitely, or whatever. So, yeah. All right.
Buy for the day or indefinitely? If we buy for the day, do you want me to reschedule it, or we buy for the day?
Buy for the day would would be indefinite, so yeah.
That's a nice way of saying it.
Yeah. It's a nice way of buy for the day today, buy for the day tomorrow, so, but, you know, we'll get there one way or another, so. All right.
Senator Hospi, I really like the idea. It really is great, right? I mean, if you can find a way to incentivize people who've gained capital to turn that capital over to nonprofits or to others. There are some models in some other states are trying in Lynchburg that are really good on this. So maybe it's something that we should look in the budget, but also look at how we could do kind of going forward.
All right. Okay. We will proceed that way, so. Certainly, yeah. All right, I think I have one more bill, which is my bill. Yeah, huh? Oh, yeah, you have yours first. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This is Senate Bill 1355. Mr. Chairman, this is the bill that would lower the corporate rate from 6% to 5%, and there's also a couple of other technical things that you may have noticed in the bill too that it does, and we can go through some of those. They are to help some more of the small businesses and others out there. Mr. Chairman, as I was kind of mentioning before, I think we've done the right thing as a bipartisan group over the last couple of years. And this committee and the chairs should be commended for what we've done. It's been hundreds of millions and then billions of dollars, and we've focused almost all of it on the working class people. It really has not been corporations or others that we've looked at. This bill does take a small portion of what we've had in a surplus and would direct that toward making sure that long-term we are competitive when it comes to the corporate tax. In fact, just this year, if you take it, it's about 12% that we would be talking about of all the tax relief would be in the corporate mindset. So that's kind of where we are. There's a couple of reasons why that I've kind of brought you this bill. And one, we've had a number of notable successes. Lately, they seem to be more in Northern Virginia than in other areas. I don't know if you've noticed the trickle. I have, where we have had governors kind of come to my part of the state, and you'd have those economic development announcements. And a lot of times I wouldn't get invited and didn't know why, but it was good for Virginia. I'm glad for all that. But that has come to a trickle. There's been some big ones. The Amazon deal that you guys helped pull together, Lego has come. So there's just some really good ones. But when you look at the numbers of wins are not high. And especially for some of the larger projects that have been coming through. And so is there something on our corporate tax side that we can do to make sure that we remain successful with the Amazons and the Legos, but put us in a great position when it comes to the medium-sized companies, the mega sites, and others kind of going forward? I know that this committee has heard a lot about kind of what's happening in other states, but I think that when you come to corporate tax, the corporate tax matters because whether you're in Danville, Virginia, or across the border, you can have a pretty big impact in Virginia. The corporate tax there is at 2.5%. I've been amazed at how they did it, how they set triggers. I actually like the triggers. And the fact is their corporate income tax came down. Their corporate receipts were going up. That's one of the problems I think we have with not doing more dynamic budgeting. That's hard to do. Congress barely gets that right, and I don't know if they get it right all the time. South Carolina is at 5%. Florida at 5.5%, and you know some of the ones that have been even lower there. As you have heard this governor say and the secretary say, both Republicans and Democrats in North Carolina are planning to phase it all the way out. I really like the triggers, and be glad to talk about triggers if this gets to a point that we have a mature discussion. Because ultimately, when you start to get more jobs coming in, the exponential increase in revenues to the Commonwealth are huge, and I'm going to show you those kind of at the end of my discussion. Mr. Chairman, as you know, we just aren't recovering, and I can tell you that I think part of this is maybe our tax structure. Part of it can be some other things. Part of it is I don't know if the federal government's coming back as well. But when you look at the charts, Virginia is just not recovering from the recession like others. Most of the states around us have recovered 100% of the jobs after the pandemic. Virginia just hasn't. We're about 5% off, and it's the numbers, right? So South Carolina is at 102%, and most people are about 101%. We're still at about 95%. Clearly, the federal government has something to do with our number, but clearly other things do as well. The other thing is that we've just not addressed this while others have. Our tax rate of 6% has been around, and I was shocked at this, since 1973. So 50 years is when we went from 5% to 6%. Mr. Chairman, I guess part of it is if we knew certain things were happening, what actions kind of would we do? That's kind of one of the items that I'd like to go through. So the first thing I think you'll notice from the FISC is this does not cost what we thought it was, or what I thought it was. If you were to ask me out of the blue what the entirety of the corporate tax was in Virginia, I would have gave you a substantially larger number. The real number is about $1.8 billion for all of it. Right? It's just not. It's not a big number. This proposal is about $350 million, and when you add in some of the other provisions we're trying to do for smaller businesses, it does jump up beyond that. But it's about $350 million. The bill also has other components, and I don't understand them as well as Charles does. But the QBI, or the 199 deduction, allows taxpayers to claim an income tax deduction equal to 1/2 of the federal qualified business tax deduction beginning in taxable year 2023. It would not apply to REITs and some of the other items that are out there. The other item that Mr. Chairman, is about $112 million. Right. So it's not inconsequential. It's big. The next item is Virginia would, under this bill, increase the income, the tax deduction for disallowable business interest from 30% to 50%, and that would begin in 2024, and provided the estimates and savings to businesses of about $10.3 million in 24 and more than $20 million in 25. Altogether, so if you add it all up, it's a big bill. Not as big as Norman's, but it's a big bill. So mine is.
I think big.
Yeah, I'm almost as big as you. It's about $470 million. So $350 million for the taxes and for the others. So the total for the 2022, the 2023 tax package delivers about $5 billion to taxpayer savings, and that's fantastic. But once again, almost all of it has gone to individuals, and I think that is about the right breakdown of that. Mr. Chairman, there's another item, and I don't have enough to hand out. I'd be glad to hand them out to you later. But I was just really taken by one item, and that is, what's the impact of having a 1% increase in more jobs? And the increase is $1.9 billion in revenue. So let's just say we pass this. And let's just say that it produced 1% increase in employment. It would be $2 billion more dollars for us to spend on higher education, K-12, and other things. Because of the way the numbers work in that, if it's just 0.5%, let's say we cut this and maybe do a little more work, and what we do is we end up increasing the total number of employments by 0.5%, it's $1.3 billion more in revenue. And that's the type of, we talk about dynamic budgeting, I wish we could do more of that. You can't always know what it is going to be, what the net effect or causality is going to be, and that's for sure. But if you did that, you looked at this, you could say, well, if it produces X, we'll know it's Y. So it's not that it's $350 million. It is, if we did $350 million, and if these other future items happen, this is what would happen. That, to me, is kind of one of the values. So, Mr. Chairman, you've been very kind with your time. If you don't mind, sir, I'd like for the Secretary to be able to quickly go through some items, or not quickly, but go through some items. I know there's some people here to speak. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee. So I think what's been done last year and what is being proposed for this year is a phenomenal package. $5 billion. And to the point you made earlier, the way it was spent last year was so appropriate for the time. Was when inflation was hitting home, people were getting crushed, and we had rates starting to moving up. So 92% of the individual was 100% progressive, and as you said, J-Lark acknowledged that, and I think that's a great testament to what's been done. I think now we're in a strong financial position. That's going away. We're at $3.6 billion surplus at year end, and if we don't use it strategically, then we've missed an opportunity. So I believe that spending $650 million to send a message on corporate that helps small business and larger corporates, as well as doing the topic we just talked about, is sending a strategic message without having spent a lot of the money that we are setting aside for tax relief, that tells people we're ready to take on and compete and really get more people to come and live and work and raise their families in Virginia.
Yes.
The thing that I don't understand listening to this is, I talked to Fairfax County. They're standing in line, businesses from all across the country to come to our area, standing in line. We offered Amazon $775 million in essentially return tax money that would start 2.5 years after they started paying their taxes. That was the package. Maryland offered them $8 billion. New Jersey offered them $8.5 billion. So we offered them less than 10% of what they did. They came here, okay? You know why they came here? Great workforce, okay? Great working conditions, favorable business environment. I've had no one at Tyson's Corner and that business, that corporate crowd, ask for a tax cut. That is not hindering businesses. They're flocking into Northern Virginia. I don't know what they're doing in Richmond or in Lynchburg, but they're flocking into our area. I mean, you take a look at the construction going on that Dulles Green, the Dulles Toll Road. That is unbelievable. I mean, every day they're starting a new high-rise building. Okay? We don't need to be cutting the corporate income tax. We've got an enormous amount of needs in this state with the state police, with local police, Commonwealth attorneys, and I understand, Tommy, you put in a budget amendment for them. We've got, a few years ago, the former president of William & Mary told me that in a 2-year period, he lost 28 full professors, only one to retirement. We're not even at the 60% mark what we pay college professors. We don't have a single Nobel Prize winner on any faculty here. Okay, in California, with supposedly with their hostility to business, 60% of venture capital money in 2021, I haven't seen the numbers for last year. In 2021, 60% of all the venture capital money spent in the United States was spent in a heavy tax area within a 50-mile radius of San Francisco. Okay, they're looking at, what's your employment situation? What's the education of your population? They're not looking at your corporate income tax.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure.
Northern Virginia is the shining light. I mean, I think we all wish we had more Northern Virginias in other parts of Virginia. We just don't. It's very competitive. And honestly, when people talk about Maryland and New Jersey, you're looking through the rearview mirror at them. We don't compete with them. And when we do, we beat them. So that's not our competition. It is absolutely to our south, and we're not winning.
Well, one of the problems that we have, for instance, in South Side Virginia or Southwest Virginia, both, is the lack of a full research university. We might try spending a few $100 million and turning UVA-Wise into a full research university that would attract high-tech companies. Okay? Giving away corporate income tax money is the last thing we need to be doing.
Well, it is our belief it does matter when people make decisions. We talk to a lot of people who are evaluating the states, their consultants that represent them. Absolutely, they look at the tax burden at the individual and corporate level. And as we all know, Op 6 is coming up, and your comments before on tuition and a comment you just made, we are 100% in agreement that that needs to be completely reevaluated.
Right.
So, complete alignment on that.
All right.
I think there are some people here that came to speak.
All right. Anyone wants to speak in favor of the bill? So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Terry Durkin with the Roanoke Regional Chamber of Commerce. We support the bill.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Adisa Muse.
Have a seat.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I'm here on behalf of Northrop Grumman. We support the bill.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the sub. Jody Roth on behalf of Virginia Retail Federation, and we support the bill. I was also asked to share the support of the Virginia CPAs.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Ken Hutchison on behalf of Anheuser-Busch. The last time I testified in front of this committee, it was on behalf of one of the provisions in this bill, the 163 Business Deduction Allowance. Anheuser-Busch competes with its breweries across the country for investment. This past October, Anheuser-Busch announced a $1 billion reinvestment in its breweries and has already announced $20 million of it coming to Williamsburg. So we support this measure. Thank you.
They want the rest of it.
Working on it.
But if you're already decided to come, what's the argument for the bill?
So, truthfully, the movement that you all made last year on the business interest deduction, raising it from 20 to 30%, was impactful, and so this bill would raise it from 30 to 50%. So it is impactful.
But you're already coming.
For that 20 million, yes, but there's another billion out there that we're trying to compete for as a brewery.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Chrissy Noonan with Reed Smith on behalf of Smithfield Foods. With thanks to the patron, we support the bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Scott Johnson on behalf of HCA Hospitals. HCA operates in 19 states, 14 hospitals in Virginia. It's the same competition for capital, and thank you last year for increasing the 163J, and hope with this bill and in the budget you'll continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Matt Britting with Virginia Bankers Association. We certainly support a tax code that is encouraging for investment. And again, as you know, Mr. Hutchison, Mr. Johnson said, we appreciate the efforts you all have done on 163J. We appreciate what is included in this bill. And again, spur that continued investment within Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Best Tool on behalf of Capital One, just echoing what others have said, we appreciate the inclusion of 163J and support it as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Kristen Burhop from the Virginia Chamber of Commerce. I'm also representing our member company, Northrop Grumman, and they support the bill.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Brian Anderson, Chamber RVA. We do support the bill. If you look at our competitive data versus as regions, we are losing against all of our competitive regions on population growth and job growth. We support the bill.
Thank you.
Is there anybody that we should tax?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'll finish up.
Yeah, sure.
I'll put you down as a maybe.
There's one little lady back there.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean
Oh,
that.
no, it's fine. Hi, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Laura Gorham with the Commonwealth Institute. We do oppose this bill because we think available resources should be used to continue on the high road in Virginia, to invest in our schools and our communities, to continue to build the skilled workforce that builds prosperity for the long run. In terms of the details of the bill, on the corporate tax rate, this would create a lower tax rate for corporations than individuals pay at the top personal income tax rate. Essentially, corporations like Starbucks would have a lower state income tax rate than the average teacher whose starting salary is just over $42,000 in Virginia. That provision would also cost in this budget about $360 million. Next budget year, for the next 2-year budget, $682 million. On the qualified business income deduction, that's the provision that allows profitable business is to pass through their income to their personal income tax rate. This is people who, do that pass-through income and receive a 10% deduction on all their income that way, that people who work for wages and salaries don't get that same 10% deduction. On the federal deduction, that's similar. IRS data shows that in Virginia, the people who made over $200,000 claimed 70% of the federal benefit from that pass-through deduction. So that clearly is most of it going to higher earners. So basically, we and our partners in Fund Our Schools think that money should be used to invest in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Senator Newman.
I'll be brief. Just a couple of follow-ups on that. One, if you're working at Starbucks, the rates may be the same, the tax is substantially lower. There's no other way around it. After you add that standard deduction in, it's much lower. So if you have $40,000, take your standard deductions, it's lower. Number two is I feel like I know where this is going today, but I do believe that the warning signs are out there that we, maybe not in Northern Virginia, but in the rest of the state, that we can look more like Maryland, more like New Jersey than we want to look. And there is something that I think has driven some of the states to the south of us, and one of those is corporate tax. And I guess my final thing, Mr. Chairman, is this. If we could ever get to a point where we could say, if we will do X, Y will occur. And that would be that if we can get our corporate tax in a place where we can increase our net number of jobs by 1%, and we can bring in another $1.9 million, we would do this today. I think all of us would do that today. If we could show the causality exact to 0.5%, I think we would all do that and trade the 450 or almost $570 million in this for the $1.3 billion. I don't know exactly where we have to get to make decisions like this, and I don't know how much of a revenue surplus we have to make decisions like this. Just for me, I think we're close to being there, and that's why I bring in the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. All right, any further comments or questions?
I would move to report the bill.
Substitute motion.
Okay. Senator Sasslaw.
We recommend to the committee that it be passed by indefinitely.
Second.
All right. You said it was a maybe, so.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, call the roll.
Senator Barker.
Aye.
Senator Howe.
Aye.
Senator Sasslaw.
Aye.
Senator Norman.
No.
Senator Newman.
No.
Senator McClellan.
She votes aye.
4 to 2.
All right, thank you. I think there's one more bill. Wait. Okay, great. Yeah. You were sprinting up here. So.
Don't leave
All
that
right.
computer like Hunter did.
We do have one more bill, but it'll only take about 10 seconds. Senator Howe, you want to chair? I have the bill.
Senator Barker, you have a bill.
I have a bill, Senate Bill 1403. It's brought on behalf of the professional firefighters pension, and it's proposed to have an income tax subtraction so that they would not be paying, from their retirement income. And what it would do is it would be somewhat similar to what we did last year with veterans. I've talked with them and talked with others. What I think is the most appropriate action that we could take now is to pass this by indefinitely with a letter to JLARC and VRS to jointly study what to do with these types of things, and also make sure that we're including in their other comparable pension provisions, so that if it's the firefighters, you have law enforcement, you have others that are in similar situations. So, and so.
If I make a motion to pass it.
No. I don't worry about it. So you can do it. So, all right. So I will make a motion to pass the bill by indefinitely with a letter to JLARC and VRS to jointly study it. So, and other retirees.
Okay.
All right.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak to the motion? Okay. Okay. Everyone in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?
Aye. All right. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that completes the docket.
Yes. Thank
Good.
you all.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Yeah. Yeah.